And so if I see somebody that is within my network, that is older than I am, and I see something that I can add value to them with, I will add that value. And I don't expect anything in return. And I think that when you're building relationships with people, you always have to think about how you mustn't come across as a leech.
Did you know we have about 5 generations in the workplace today? That's a whole lot to unpack. With me in the studio today is FG Fire.
Hi, Toby.
Hi, FG. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's wonderful to be here.
And you guys know that FG is Jan family members. So we are going to be having a family conversation around generations, right? And so we know FG. She's Gen Z, she's Gen Alpha, she's millennial. You can talk about any generation and she fits into it so perfectly. Now, the question is, how do you manage all this relationship across all the generations that you have relationships with? How have you sustained it?
Okay, so that's a great question, Toby. And I think that what is most important is just to always respect, value, and honor people, no matter what age they are. So with me, I have friends, acquaintances, colleagues, business, everything across all generations. And I think it's really because I really see value in people. So whenever I meet somebody, I don't say, oh, this person is this age or that age, so I should not speak to them like they have any sort of value. If you are 10, if you are 8, if you are 80, I believe that God has put something inside of everybody. And so the way that I relate with people is really the way that is with people that I feel everybody has value. And so that's how I do it, I guess. Yeah.
Amazing. Now we have the whole narrative around Gen Z. And I feel
I love Gen Z. Let me just say, Gen Zs are my peeps and I love them.
We know. We know.
I love Gen Zs.
Everywhere.
I love Gen Zs. I love them all. Yes.
Millennials, we never stop talking about Gen Z.
I know. Everybody talks about Gen Z.
How do we manage this?
So you know what I think it is? I think that digital technology changed the world drastically. So every generation before Gen Z really, which were pre-digital age people, lived a very different kind of a life, right? So we didn't have the full-time gadgets that Gen Zs have that is like an appendage, like additional arms, We didn't have the internet to this extent. So when I was growing up, the internet really became popular, I think, right about when I started university. And so I'm kind of like an in-between, I think. And then I also now studied computer science. So I use a lot of technology. And so I think that the real thing is that the difference in how people grew up, me walking to the library to look for books versus me Googling, me having to go to a physical classroom versus me being able to engage in an online course, me going to a place physically, whether it's church or a party, versus me being able to attend it on Zoom or on YouTube. Those are real cultural differences between generations. And so I think a lot of what's happening with Gen Z is it's the first time we're really engaged in the digital era. And so we're also seeing behavioral changes that some people are finding a bit hard to understand and deal with. And I do think that every generation has its pluses and its minuses.
Right.
And I think that with Gen Zs, it's really us trying to understand the way they think, the way that they behave. And it's really because of the digital era that we're born in. So yeah, that's what I think it is.
So now, looking at the workplace, we have 5 generations.
Toby, this is your question. Anyway, bring it on.
And I feel like it has led to more conflict in the workplace because people are struggling to understand each other or even trying to understand the dynamics around the workplace as it relates to their personalities. Absolutely. But what should people pay attention to?
Okay, so first of all, I think that when you think about the workplace, and you think about, new entrants. So the newer entrants into the workplace are Gen Zs.
Right.
Soon you'll be Gen Alphas, but they still have a little bit of time to go, right? I think that everybody that is above a certain age has to see themselves as a coach, a guide, a mentor, a friend. Because there are many things that are very different about how Gen Z started working. So I'll give you an example. I realized in 2021 that many of the Gen Zs I knew, their very first job was during the pandemic.
Right.
So they started working from home. So unlike when I started working and I had to physically go into an office, they did not. That is completely different from the mentality that if you're above a certain age, you have about working. The way that you think about work, about your boss, about accountability, is so different because you're literally working from home from as soon as you graduate.
Right.
And so we need to be sensitive to that. We need to just understand that it's just different for them. And so sometimes we need to talk a bit more and guide and say, okay, I know that this is how you've been working and this is how you started working, but did you understand that this is actually how things are done? Did I say did you? Do you understand? Sorry, pardon me. That this is how things are done and how things should be done. So I think that we shouldn't look at them as a problem.
Right.
I'm the kind of person that because I see value in people, I don't like it when people label people and just say people are a problem. I'm like, how can everybody be a problem? Sometimes people are problems, but everybody in a generation cannot be a problem. There's something distinct that we are missing. And we need to be intentional about how we then see them, how we coach them, how we guide them. When I started working, Toby, I had to physically go into an office every single day.
Right.
There was no hybrid working. There was no some days I work from home. Every day you are physically in the office and you must be at the office on time. In fact, when you go to the office for your first week and you see how people are behaving, you learn by watching them. Imagine people that don't have that benefit. They don't have the benefit of seeing people on a day-to-day basis and learning, different nuances, different behaviors, different ways of gathering themselves. And so I think that we just have to be more conscious about that and talk more and talk with kindness, talk with empathy. Don't talk at people as though, you guys in your generation no. Let them understand that, what, it's different. We're all learning, but you guys have to learn that this is how things should be done. Yeah.
So what I hear you say is the older generation definitely, apologies if I call you the older generation, but that's what you are.
It's okay. I'm part of them. It's
So
okay.
that means that you're saying the older generation need to learn more patience.
And empathy.
They need to,
Absolutely.
adopt empathy in everything
Absolutely.
that we do.
And I think that Gen Zs also need to learn that it's not always their way. You have the digital technology. Okay, we're happy for you. Now all of us have it. You were born in that time, right? So many of them, you have to understand that they are babies that from when they are babies, they are seeing phones and iPads. Even if they're not using it, it is their reality. So they don't understand how maybe you had one cousin that moved when you were in primary school or a friend moved abroad and you couldn't communicate with them every day. They have video calls, they have things that we didn't have when we were growing up. So it's affected how their minds are also shaped and how their cultures are shaped. So they also have to understand that it's not that everything that they say and do is perfect. They also have a lot to learn. The story of what I'm saying is that we all have a lot to learn from each other. And I believe that with empathy, honor and respect, seeing the value of a human being, and treating people how you want to be treated, that we can actually make a lot of magic happen together.
Amazing. So I'm going to come down and spotlight you a bit, right?
What does that mean?
Yeah. So I have been to events, meetings, and conferences where Mrs. Awushika has referenced Foluso Gbadamosi, and she was saying, Foluso. I think it was even maybe 2000 or there 2000 and something. I can't even remember.
Wow.
And I was like, who is this person that Mrs. A is talking so much about? Now my question is, look at Mrs. A. She's a global personality. She's a global brand, right? How did you manage that relationship? How did you build that relationship such that you have that heart, you have that space in our heart? Yeah.
Wow, that is a very spotlight question, Toby. Okay, so I mean, Mrs. Awushika, I love her. She is one of my absolutely awesome, amazing. I would call her somebody that has guided me a lot in many, many things, and I have a few of them like her, and they're just absolutely phenomenal women. I think that it goes back to what I said. I mean, Mrs. Awushika, as we all know, is in her early 60s. I mean, she had a lovely 60th shindig like two or so years ago. I am in my early 40s, so we're quite significantly far apart in age. When I connected with Mrs. Awushika several years ago, and we started to build a relationship, it wasn't because I didn't take it from a place of what can you do for me. It was organic, right? That's number one.
Right.
Number two is I was very, and not just with her, I am very intentional about how I can add value to people as a person. And so if I see somebody that is within my network, that is older than I am, and I see something that I can add value to them with, I will add that value. And I don't expect anything in return. And I think that when you're building relationships with people, you always have to think about how you mustn't come across as a leech. I can't think of any other word, because I've seen people who they are so some people use the word strategic. Strategic is not actually a bad word, but I don't think that it's strategic. I think it actually gives off a very horrible vibe when you just are looking for what you can get out of people, and it's all about, oh, I want this and this and this, and this is the person that can get me there, so I'm going to just target them, and as soon as I meet them, can you please just be calming down? As in, can we all calm down? You know, it's not always about that. You need to understand that nobody is perfect. Everybody has a need. Right. And if you're a younger person who is targeting an older person that you think you want to learn from, as you're learning from them, what can you also do for them? But let me tell you why I love older people. The number of things I have learned just from gisting with older people about parenting, marriage, career, business, life, personal development, everything. Sometimes just gisting. Gems. They don't think it's gems though. But me, I'm like, hey, diamond, ruby, sapphire. And I'm catching them words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's not always about, oh, Ma, I want you to come and do this for me. Why can't you just relax? What can you also do for them? I remember a few years ago, Ambassador Nimi Akinkugbe was speaking about how then she wasn't an ambassador yet, but you know, she's somebody that has always done a lot of money matters kind of, you know, programs and just things to help women especially up their money game. And so she was talking about how she realized that she didn't know how to use a lot of social media tools like Twitter and all of them. And so she did reverse mentoring with a young man who taught her how to use all of those tools, and she was in turn mentoring him. I'm talking about how reverse mentoring is actually a big thing for younger generations because they are able to teach older people things that are technology devices and tools that they have no clue about. But they also have a lot to learn from the older generation that have been through so many things in life and can guide them. Right. So I think for me, it's really having that mindset of don't just think that it's always about taking from people. Also, when it comes to mentorship, sorry, since I mentioned it, I want to just touch on that. Yes. Mentorship for me should be organic.
Okay.
I know that there is, mentorship programs that organizations organize, and I'm part of some of those. And you have to build rapport with the person that you've been linked with. But I do think that people have to understand that you can actually get mentored by people even within your own community and social circle. Don't always look far that, oh, I want this big woman or this big man to mentor me. Sometimes if you look within your sphere, you have an uncle, an auntie, a cousin, an egbon that maybe is 10, 15 years older than you that's doing amazing things that can actually guide you. But it goes back to what I said, which is we have to be able to honor people and value people so that you can even see that people actually have something that you can learn from.
Amazing. There's always something people can learn from us. Regardless the demographic.
Young and old. Because even with younger people, and that's why, like you were saying, like, I have friends across generations, even younger people. You learn a lot from younger people. I learn from my children's friends, just sitting with them sometimes. I'm learning sometimes, not that I'm learning something that maybe it's necessarily new, but I'm even learning how to relate with younger people. I'm learning how their minds work because of when they were born. Do you understand? I'm learning that there are things that I experienced at that age that the way that we are talking about it or even manifesting it is different because they have all these digital devices and they have so much information because it's the information age as well.
Amazing. Okay, FJ, as we round up, I would want you to share tips on how we can nurture relationships.
I don't have. You see, for you to make any sort of impact with anybody or even influence them positively, which we all need to be doing, you need to connect with them. And if you have a high and mighty, oh, I'm better than you, they're not going to want to talk to you. They're just going to be like, that auntie or that big mommy just thinks that she's better than everybody. But if you can connect with them, listen to them, everybody has something that they can offer.
Right.
If you just pay attention to what they're saying and what they're not saying as well. And I really believe that there's so much that all these 5 generations in the workplace can actually learn from each other and create amazing magic.
Okay, so I want us to talk about, we've had cases where young people have tried to reach out to someone to be mentored by them, but they've never gotten any response.
Because it's stressful to be. Oh my goodness. So, I still consider myself to be, younger because, we have 5 generations in the workplace and I'm nowhere close to even like you. I'm about, maybe like I'm like lower midpoint right now, age-wise. Even for me, at my youngish age, with my few years of experience, I know how stressful it can be for me when people just send me a cold DM and say, can you mentor me? What do I say? Unless I have a formal mentorship program, which I don't have, at least not now. it's very, very difficult because mentorship is not something that is, let's just be doing like this, chicken check boxes. You know what I mean? There needs to be some sort of rapport. I prefer it when people approach me and say to me, oh, I've maybe I followed you, or I've listened to something that things that you've said, or I've read your book or whatever, and I think that I can learn something from you in so and so particular area. Can we maybe have a conversation first and let's see how it goes? That's a thing. Somebody still approached me last weekend about that. I don't mind that. But when you cold call somebody that's very busy, another thing, sorry, about Gen Zs is that because they are always on their gadget, they assume that all of us are always on our gadget.
Preach it.
And that I'm not working and I ain't got stuff to do. Like, listen, let me not switch my accent. Let me come back. Do you know how busy people are? Let me crack a quick joke. So I used to serve at the young adult church of my church, Elevation Church, which is called Light Point Church. I remember when we started serving like 7-8 years ago, many of the guys, they were younger, they were in their 20s. Now, many of them are getting married, they have children. They're now saying, we respect you people, because then you people were as we are now. And we used to wonder, what's the big deal? Now that they have young children, they're like, wow, you guys are really amazing. How did you guys manage it? And that's the thing, is that you need to be able to think about different people, different stages of life that they are in. So if you are young, don't just think that 45, 50, 60, 70 person is just jobless, waiting for you to DM them. People have things going on. People have families, they have lives, So you need to be able to be empathetic. Remember, I used the word empathy. Empathy should flow across all generations. Younger people, don't just think that older people are just sitting around waiting for you to DM them. Oh, you have not replied me. Really? You think I'm checking all of my DMs 24/7? Like, if I was doing that, you wouldn't want me to mentor you, because I wouldn't really be about much.
Wow.
That's true. So let's think about that. And let's not always think that mentorship has to be with people that you don't know. Do you understand?
Okay.
It doesn't.
Okay.
You can look at people within you. There's always somebody within your circle that you can learn from.
Wow, amazing. Okay, FG, last words. What advice would you give to young people who are looking forward to being mentored by people? They still have the goals, right? Despite all that we've said, they still have specific persons that they hope to be mentored by. How would you say they should go by?
I would say that, first of all, and this is what I did. So everybody that is older that I have gained direct mentorship from are people that I have been very intentional, not about going to them and saying, can you please mentor me? But just going to their events.
Right.
As in, you will catch me there, learning from them. Any opportunity that I get to learn from them, I will be there. I learn from them as much as I can. I connect with them, introduce myself, we connect, and then sometimes, yes, it takes time. It's not because I have expectations that they should have time for nobody except for me. Because like I said earlier, if they did, I wouldn't want, because they won't be about much, right? So it's about you being intentional. Who are the people that you are targeting in code that you think, oh, this person? And then just follow what they do. If you hear they're going to speak somewhere, go there. I used to do that. Sometimes, I remember there was a time, I'll tell you two quick stories. There was a time when I was working within the financial services space. And I remember hearing that Mrs. Mobola Johnson was going to be speaking at Fountain of Life Church in Ibuku. My office was in VI. But I remember I said, Mrs. Mobola Johnson used to be a minister of information technology. She was MD of Accenture. She's a big deal. I want to hear what she has to say. And I drove to Ibuku for that session, and it was a phenomenal session. Till today, I remember that session and all the things that she taught us. Very amazing session. Second of all, Mrs. Olajumoke Adenowo, who I just was like, phenomenal woman. She's doing big things within her space. She's also always having these ministry events. How is she juggling all of this? She's married, she has 2 kids. Went to her programs, right? So the point I'm making here is that you need to look at where you're trying to go in life.
Right.
And as they say, follow who know road. Look for them. There are so many. See, the digital age and information age has helped us. There are many things that are available online. Follow them on YouTube. Go to their events, connect with them, introduce yourself, and then start to build something from that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thanks
Thank you
for
for adding
having
value.
me. Well
and
done.
that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Catch you on the next episode. Bye for now.